think the number one thing that we talk about a lot is the lack of clinical experience.
Regurgitating and passing down information of what should work, but we don't actually know what's going to be effective and what doses are going to be effective. And we're learning a lot of information, but we've lost the wisdom of what it actually means to put this into clinical practice and how to get clinical
Absolutely.
results.
If you read a book or a blog, it needs to be someone who is in clinical practice.
And I think we need more scrutiny as consumers into who to listen to and what to believe.
Welcome to Herbalism Uncensored, the podcast where we dig deep into the world of herbalism and natural healing. I'm Alicia.
And I'm Lila. We're two clinical herbalists who recognize the need for honest and authentic conversations about the state of natural healing today. As practitioners, we feel called to have uncensored discussions about why people aren't finding relief and what to do about it.
If you're frustrated by lack of results, overwhelmed by conflicting advice online, disillusioned by the commercialization of wellness, or simply passionate about natural healing, you're in the right place.
This podcast is our way of cutting through the noise, busting myths, and challenging marketing gimmicks, all while inspiring real, lasting results for professionals and individuals alike.
We're gonna get real, calling out what works, what doesn't, and why. Our goal is to equip you with the tools to take charge of your health. We're here to help everyone rethink clinical success and achieve better outcomes.
We're honored to be here and feel privileged to contribute to the realistic and functional growth of our professions, one where they effectively support all people on their journeys to feel better.
This is Herbalism Uncensored,
where together we're nurturing the future of natural healing.
So we are in a rut in the natural healing world.
We are in a rut in the natural healing world, but let's define what is the natural healing world. Let's start there.
Ooh, the natural healing world is huge.
Yes.
I'm part of the natural healing world. I'm a holistic health practitioner. I'm a clinical herbalist. I'm on my way to being an Ayurvedic health counselor. You're part of the natural healing world.
Yeah, I do functional nutrition and the herbalism and the Ayurveda as you do. And we're just like a small sector of the natural healing world. Like what else is out there?
Well, I know for myself, I see a body worker. So
Mm-hmm.
I have a fabulous massage therapist, and she does cranial sacral therapy and somatic touch. Um, she uses essential oils, aromatherapy. I've got a great chiropractor, an acupuncturist.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then we have our naturopaths, you mentioned acupuncturist, people who practice homeopathy or our energy healers. We have to include them, right, in the
I
natural
like
healing.
the Reiki therapist, the Satnam Rasayan practitioners, and then we forget like we're both yoga teachers, right?
Yes. Yep. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's natural healing.
that is natural healing. Well, then we're getting into like how, and depending on how you use it, but absolutely, it's part of the natural healing world.
Yeah. So maybe we define natural healing as people who use modalities that aren't drug-based to heal people. Is that a fair assessment?
Drugless practitioners, yeah. I mean, I think that like the natural healing world would be, yes, anything that I can do or the earth can do. It's when we're not using chemicals.
Mm-hmm.
So it's basically anything outside of the mainstream conventional model to feel better. That's what I
Okay.
always talk about. Like in my business, I say feel better naturally.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel better without putting chemicals in my body.
I like that. And I'm
These
always a big fan
man-made
of
and synthetic.
yes. And there's so many paths up the healing mountain. And I think that's why there's so many modalities. You can get there in so many ways. But that brings us to the point of there's all these modalities out there and we're in a rut. So let's talk about what this rut is.
Okay, so I I think the number one thing that we talk about a lot is the lack of clinical experience.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of people that are out there um, opening up schools to teach people how to practice these modalities. And they haven't really spent much time working one-on-one with people. So they don't have a lot of clinical experience. They're just out there parroting what they learned from their teacher, who may or may not have had clinical experience.
Yes. And I think you compound that with the marketing machine that's going on and everybody trying to sell supplements and protocols. So we have, I think, just a lot of what I see when I work with clients is ineffective healing happening, or we have all these modalities, but they're not serving people or getting people to where they want to go on their health journeys, leaving a hole in the space and leaving a lot of people who are desperately looking for help without help.
Like, how often? Well, okay, first, I want to caveat this because I think that this depends on this issue that I brought up depends on which modality we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Because, for example, I think that there is no shortage of fantastic massage therapy schools where the people who are teaching the massage therapy have a lot of experience. This is something that seems to show up more in the herbalism world.
Yeah.
It's difficult to find people who have clinical experience working with people herbally or a large amount of clinical experience who are teaching. So
Mm-hmm.
that's one issue. And then you bring up the marketing machine, and it makes me think of how many times have you sat with a client who's been working with a naturopath or a functional medicine doctor? And they're on all like this long list, this plethora of really expensive brand name supplements.
Yes. Yes, more times than I can count.
Because I mean, the naturopath will oftentimes, and not all naturopaths, but some naturopaths have, say, one or two or maybe three brands of products that they like to work with, and that's every client that comes in to their office gets a recommendation of a long list of products that come from one of those brands.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know about what you're seeing, but I'm seeing a lot of people that have gone to many different places and people and still haven't been able to resolve the chronic health challenges that they're faced with. So they've worked with functional medicine doctors, they've worked with conventional doctors and naturopaths, and they see body workers and they're open to natural alternative modalities, but they still have not gotten to where they should have gotten on their healing journeys. And I think, yeah, to caveat this further, this isn't to say that all of these modalities are ineffective or any one particular person is doing anything wrong. It's just to say that on the whole, I think that the alternative healing world's getting a little soft and it doesn't have as much like teeth or effectiveness as it did, 40, 50, 30 years ago even.
Well, I think there's a couple of reasons for that, right? That people are, of course, there's a liability issue. Because if we go too hard, too strong, too fast, and we're really aggressive with our therapies, then there's chances for people to have side effects, and we live in a litigious society. So that causes people to, as a practitioner, it's really easy to go, okay, I want to go low and slow because I don't want to cause any waves and I don't want to have any problems. But then I have to ask how much is that going to benefit this person who's come to me asking for help?
Mm-hmm.
And then the other issue there that comes up, ooh, did I lose it? I think I lost it.
Well, what you brought up is really interesting because I think that's the herbalism is our it's my favorite modality that I practice, and I think that's like the bread and butter of what we both do. And it that totally encompasses like the herbalism that has gotten popular today here in America. And what we're seeing on social media and in blogs is like a very soft, gentle form of herbalism that is nice and cute and aesthetic and all these things, but it doesn't necessarily get people clinical results. And I think that people have stopped realizing that you can see an herbalist to help with some pretty serious issues. Herbalism is a potent form of medicine, and we are losing that potency because of its how it's getting practiced and how ineffective it's been for people. And people go back to conventional medicine or not finding help when they turn to certain modalities like the ones we practice.
Hmm. Absolutely. And oh man, you're making me think of so many things. So, because yeah, like the herbalism that I see on Instagram is oh, it's pretty and the teas taste good and it's attractive and it's marketable. And I remember when I started teaching yoga and getting into that world, and people talked about the business of yoga. Because 22 years ago, when I started doing yoga, there was no music, there were no mirrors in the room. The teacher wore a turban. We practiced on carpet, um, and everyone was fully clothed. And,
Interesting.
and the movements were very slow, and it was a lot of long holding. And now, I think if I get as far away from that as possible, the opposite end of the spectrum would be a vinyasa flow class at your local gym,
Hmm.
where breath with movement would be as if you were breathing because it's so quick. There's music, it's so loud you can barely hear the teacher. It's more like dance class than yoga class. There's no holding poses. But if you go to a class, where the teacher's wearing a turban and there's no mirrors and no music, there's 5 people in the class. The class at your local gym that's really gotten very far away from what yoga is, because yoga is the practice of feeling your body and focusing on your breath and yeah, and feeling your body in the pose. It's so far away from that, but there's 70 people in there. So the people who are teaching that class have a lot of clients, they're making a lot of money.
Yeah. And that
But
leads
how
me to,
much are they really helping people?
right. And that leads me to like thinking, okay, is it because we are commercializing these modalities that this is happening? We're trying to make herbs look pretty and aesthetic so we can sell herb products that, aren't necessarily effective, but they sell this um, mysticism and this aestheticness, and people want them to work and they want them to be, folksy and all these things. And with yoga, right? Like we've commercialized it to the point where it's become a workout class, right? People go to yoga to get fit. They go to yoga to work out. The yoga that you and I talk about is not the yoga that everyone else thinks of as yoga. And I think that like started, probably a couple decades ago when these things started getting commercialized.
Well, and that was, what did our mentor just say last week? He said you're supposed to go to yoga to grow an awareness. Now people go to yoga to get a good butt, right? And I think you used to go to the herbalist to treat your ailments, and now you go to the herbalist.
Do you even go to the herbalist now? I think it's been like kind of just wiped out from the minds of people as a clinical modality to treat disease. I think people think of herbalism as like, let me make a pretty tea at home. Let me bake cookies with a little bit of rose powder in them. And
I'll put calendula flowers on top of my sourdough bread, and it's really pretty.
yes, yes, exactly. And I'm an herbalist because that's an herb and it's, getting used.
Well, and the naturopaths practice herbalism, and a lot of acupuncturists do some herbalism, and traditional Chinese medicine doctors use herbs, but I don't think we think of it as that because you and I have been trained in Ayurveda, traditional Chinese herbalism, and Western herbalism, so it's all of the herbs, and we have a larger materia medica than a lot of people. And I say to people who aren't practitioners who are listening, materia medica means the basically the long list of herbs that I could possibly use to help someone or help myself. But yeah, I think no, that's a whole nother episode. Never mind.
Episode it's setting the groundwork for like 50 other episodes, I swear.
Yeah. Oh, well, and then we talk about so people go, you talk about people working with multiple practitioners. And we
Mhm.
talked about the placebo effect, right?
Yeah.
People will continue to go to their practitioner, whatever practitioner that is, if they get a little bit better. Like I just saw someone yesterday, I was talking to you about this. The woman had she's had some relief. She's been working with a, a Chinese doctor or a doctor of Chinese medicine, not a Chinese doctor, a doctor of Chinese medicine, and a functional medicine doctor. And she's had some relief, but it's been a year and she still has some chronic underlying symptoms.
Right.
And I would think that after a year, for the issues that she has, those symptoms should be resolved 100%.
And knowing that specifics of that, yes, I agree with you. And I think not to lump or to separate out the I think there's two different things going on with the traditional Chinese medicine practitioners and then our functional doctors and our naturopaths. And I think with the traditional Chinese medicine route, it's low and slow, right? They don't treat symptoms, they only treat the underlying patterns, and
Mhm.
it takes years to come back into balance. So I think a lot of people here want quicker results and they don't see those results quickly. And so traditional Chinese medicine just takes a lot longer than people are used to. Um, and without that symptomatic treatment on certain ailments, I think there's just a lot of missed opportunity to get people better quicker with like your specific client that I'm thinking of.
Okay, and pause because I want to hear what you have to say about functional medicine doctors and naturopaths. But I saw what this woman is taking from her traditional Chinese medicine doctor,
Mhm.
and you and I know that of the three major systems, because Ayurveda, traditional Chinese medicine, Western medicine are completely developed, fully healing systems. Like you can take care of your entire body, and they all have their own sets of herbs. And the Chinese medicine tends to have the least potent herbs that need the highest doses. And that's one of the reasons why in traditional Chinese medicine, a lot of things are taken in tea. So that you can get these large doses in of 30, 60, 90 grams worth of herb in a day. And I saw what she's taking. And she has one tea that I've yet to get the ingredients of. And then she has two tea pills formulas that she's taking 8 of these tea pills 3 times a day. So from what I've been taught, even in the route of traditional Chinese medicine, these are pretty low doses.
Yep.
This is sub-therapeutic. And
That's
I
a
think that this comes down to it's there's a fear to like really use some aggressive therapies.
Yeah, which I think goes back to the lack of clinical experience and not knowing what's going to work at what doses. And um, this kind of leads into what's going on, I think, in the naturopathic world, from what I've been seeing, is they haven't been taught with a lot of wisdom. So we're, regurgitating and passing down information of what should work, but we don't actually know what's going to be effective and what doses are going to be effective. And we're learning a lot of information, but we've lost the wisdom of what it actually means to put this into clinical practice and how to get clinical results. I think the emphasis has not been on getting clinical results, and people have forgotten what you can actually do with these modalities.
Yeah, I 100% agree. There's a big difference between like looking at my bookshelf at some of my earlier books, like the Indian Herbology of North America, right? And it's just it's the list of this herb, you can use this for this, and absorbing the knowledge and knowing the knowledge, but it's one of those like self-knowledge avails us nothing, right? I have all of this knowledge of herbs, but if I don't do something with it, then I don't really know
Mm-hmm.
what works.
Yeah. And I think that, as you brought up earlier, as we are seeing a higher turnover in the teachers in these alternative fields, especially in herbalism and a lot of the naturopathic schools, the wisdom's lost, right? We're learning from the book, but the wisdom's lost. Somebody embodying what it actually means to use these herbs and how they look in clinical practice it's gone. And I think that's something we've been really fortunate for is having a mentor who's been doing it for, so many decades and has really drilled into us that this is what's possible here. And you and I both know firsthand that anything we learn about, we go and try or we use with our clients, and we realize like there is such a big difference between book learning and clinical work. It's like it's insane.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't even really feel like I absorbed the book learning until I put it into clinical practice. Um, and I wonder, I haven't talked to anyone. I'm going to ask somebody who went to med school because I wonder if people who are teaching medicine at Harvard Med have practiced medicine because it becomes totally different. when you put it into practice. And one of the thing that I'm thinking of is that saying, somebody told me a long time ago that you're 100% expert at your own experience. Like I could be an expert at nothing else, but I am an expert in my experience, 100%, just like you're an expert of your experience. And so the more experience I have doing these things, or like our mentor, he is an expert,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of experience. And there's a lot of people out there teaching these things that don't have much experience or have little experience. Maybe went to practice for a year, worked with clients for a year, and then opened up a school.
Yeah. Which I mean, there's like, how vast is the field of herbalism and using food as medicine and plants as medicine and these alternative modalities? Like, it's such a vast field. Like, you couldn't pick that up or become proficient in your craft in a year.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And then you have to question, like, so back to the placebo effect, right? Like, so how do we know it's working, right? And we talked about this the other day that we say it's what, 30%?
Of all healing is placebo. Western medicine, alternative medicine, 30% of all healing is placebo.
Okay, so this is for just like the layman out there listening. If you go to Whole Foods and you buy a box of tea and you put a tea bag in a teacup and you feel better, we're here to tell you that that's in your head. It's a placebo effect. There's not one herb that's in a tea bag in the tea aisle at the grocery store that is strong enough for you to get an effect from one tea bag. Am I wrong?
The only thing I can think of is my smooth move, which is set
Well,
upon, but
yeah.
that gives you a clinical result. And that's so interesting because like you know it's working because like you see it, right? There's body changes, like there is a desired action and an outcome when you are using a laxative that tells you if it's working or not, right? Like if that laxative isn't making things move, it's not working. But when it comes to things like using a tea bag of chamomile tea for sleep or anxiety or something like that, that is where we really do get into placebo effect because our minds are super powerful and the placebo effect's cool, but is that us or is that the herb? And when we're using those herbs at subclinical doses, they aren't doing enough physiologically in our body to move the needle, right?
Absolutely. And just so in case anybody didn't hear, 'cause that is traditional medicinal's smooth move tea, right? And it has senna in it, which is a powerful peristalsis enhancing laxative. And yes, you will, if you don't get results off of one tea bag of that, I would be surprised. So I'm glad that you brought that up and didn't make a liar out of me. Um, but and the body is so amazing and the mind is so powerful, right? That there are so many people who can drink a cup of chamomile tea and feel sleepy afterwards
Mm-hmm.
because of that power of the mind that I am going to drink this tea and I'm going to feel sleepy. And that's amazing. That's one of the things I tell my clients when they take, because I give people I suggest to people that they drink some things that do not taste good and swallow some things that are no fun in large amounts and
Mm-hmm.
tell them that when you do this, you need to tell yourself, this is good for me. I am doing myself a favor. This is going to make me feel better. Instead of saying, oh, this is so nasty. I hate doing this.
Yes.
And people who do that get better results.
Yeah. Well, I don't think we can. The placebo effect is great. It is a good thing, and it proves again how, like you said, how powerful our minds are in influencing our body. I think where the challenge comes in is placebo effects are not repeatable. They don't work across the board for everyone the same. And if you are relying on things that only provide a placebo effect and you were charging for it, that brings up an ethical question to me of I think we talk about this, right? Charging for placebo. Like we only want to charge people for things that we know to work. We will dial in, we will look for clinical results and feedback and make sure that the modalities that we're putting into place are reliable. And when a lot of healers rely on placebo and then we try and reenact what they're doing and it doesn't work, that's when we start getting into like all this misinformation of what should be working and what's getting popular on the internet and these low doses. And that's when people are turning to the things that are powerful but aren't being used effectively, and they're finding them ineffective, which brings us full circle to the rut we're in.
To the rut we're in, and you bring up two other really good points because you're leading into the idea that, well, one, let's say I have a problem, or I had a problem years ago. I had 15 different problems. I felt bad in 15 different ways, and I went to a primary care physician and three different doctors, and none of them could find out what was wrong with me. Where do I go? I need help. Who do I go see? Do I go see a naturopath? Do I go see a nutritionist? Do I go see an herbalist? Do I go see an energy healer? Do I see an osteo? I mean, where do I go? How do I know where to go? And why do I need to go anywhere? Why don't I just get on the internet and Google some stuff?
Don't do that. That was never the answer.
Well, I didn't do that. I did not do that. I went to an herbalist. I was in at this time. This was 10 years ago. I was in school in an academic setting, learning to become an herbalist, and my mentor happened to be a practicing herbalist. So I went and saw him. And the funny thing was, I had an appointment with a cardiologist, scheduled 3 months later. It took me 3 days to get in with the herbalist. By the time I got to the cardiologist, all my cardiac symptoms had cleared up. And the cardiologist said, I've never heard of this herb you're taking, but if you're not having side effects, keep taking it.
Oh my
Because
God.
anything I could give you would give you horrible side effects. But so that's my success story about how I went to an herbalist. But how do you know where to go? How do you know who to go to? And why don't you just get on the internet? And what modality is going to work? How do you? Because that's a problem too, because we have all of these modalities that are being extracted from full systems. Like we talk about this. So acupuncture is very popular in the States, but acupuncture is just one aspect of traditional Chinese medicine, which is a fully developed system that includes herbs, massage, acupressure, acupuncture, cupping, moxibustion, um, probably many other things that nutrition, many other things that I'm not thinking of. Ayurveda, um, yoga's pretty much part of Ayurveda, and that's become very popular. Um, the
Yeah,
Shirodara?
I can never say it.
That's become very popular of people getting oil. People lay down and they have this continuous slow drip of oil that pours on their head and falls down onto the floor. And it's this beautiful, relaxing thing that is traditionally a treatment for Vata, for high Vata, but that's become, that's Ayurveda, and food combining is Ayurveda. If you eat khichdi, then you're practicing Ayurveda, but Ayurveda is a fully developed healing system that addresses every single aspect of your life, from what time you go to bed and when you eat and when you have sex and what you eat and how you eat it. And it's equipped to help you with anything that could possibly go wrong, from insomnia to epilepsy.
Yeah. Okay, you bring up like 20 really great points. And the first one being, how do we know what modality to use? And if we do figure out what modality to use, how do we know who's practicing that modality is being effective? And you bring up a great point about we're extracting individual pieces of entire healing systems and having them stand alone as modalities to treat things that they weren't designed to treat. So, like the oil forehead massage that you're talking about. I have a client who I'm working with migraines, and somebody told her to go do that because it helps with migraines. And while that is true, that is a great migraine remedy. Nobody told her that you have to do a session a day for 100 days before you can even assess if it's working, right? Like we are selling this service, this massage service, as something to heal something as serious and as chronic as migraines, but we're missing the wisdom, right? We're missing that piece that tells us how is this effective? How long does this take to be effective? And the practitioners who are, I think, doing these things aren't aware either. And so they expect these modalities to work in a certain way and they're not. And it's leaving practitioners frustrated they're not seeing results. It's leaving clients frustrated that they're not getting results. And I think it all just comes back down to a lack of wisdom. And so how do consumers combat this is $1 million question. I don't even know, like, because as a consumer, when I go to find a new body worker or something, like, it's a vast world. I could go see, 10 different people for my back pain.
Mhm.
And for me, I'm pretty discretionary. So like I'm looking for clinical results. I'm looking for someone who is also looking to give me clinical results. And I think that's really big part of like as you're doing because it's almost like dating, right? Like finding practitioners. It's like a
Yeah.
dating process. Like you really have to figure out who's going to actually help you. And it's hard. It's hard. It's not easy.
Well, I think that and you bring up a couple of good things because so I think I'll say a couple of things. So your client with the migraines.
Mhm.
Yes, that is an amazing treatment for migraines, but an Ayurvedic doctor would do that and he would also do other things. He would also make dietary suggestions and herbal suggestions. So there we go. We're talking about just pulling one aspect of a fully developed system and saying, let's use this one aspect to treat you. When it comes to acupuncture, for example, back when I was having a lot of problems and I went and saw an acupuncturist, my acupuncturist made a deal. My acupuncturist did not go to acupuncture school. He trained in a lineage manner and apprenticed with a doctor of Chinese medicine from China and traveled around with him and went and saw clients with him. And when they finally licensed acupuncture, he took the test and became a licensed acupuncturist. And he told me, this is not how we do how they do acupuncture in China. Don't come and see me once a week for 8 months. You need to come and see me 8 days in a row.
Hmm.
And he sold me a package. It was like half price per treatment. I think he was charging, I don't know what he was charging, but he gave me a deal. I paid him one lump sum that got me 8 sessions or 10 sessions. And I went every day for 8 or 10 days. This was a long time ago, and I got some real relief. But I also took herbs
Hmm.
while I was getting these sessions. So, questions that I ask practitioners when I'm shopping for a practitioner, be it a massage therapist, a chiropractor, an herbalist, a naturopath, I want to know, how long have you been practicing and where have you trained? Because I want someone who has been practicing and seeing clients for a period of time and has continued to do that. And I also want someone who's always learning. My massage therapist has been a massage therapist for 20 years. She's still in school. She's always taking another course. She's always learning something else. That's why she's one of the top massage therapists in a city full of massage therapists. You should always be learning and expanding your base of knowledge, and you should always be getting hands-on practice with real people to continue to to serve the public, to serve people, because I think that's why we get into stuff like this, right? Like people who get into alternative healthcare don't get into alternative healthcare to get rich. We get into alternative healthcare usually because we've had some kind of ailment ourselves that we found a solution to, and because we want to serve the community. We want to help people.
Yep. Absolutely. And I think that's a really good point you touched on when looking for practitioner, ask about their clinical practice and what that's looked like. And I love the continuing education piece. Um, I mean, I think since I've known you, we're always continuing our education. And like I have continuing education mapped out for the next few years, and it will never end because again, how vast is this field? How vast are any of the fields of these modalities? These are modalities that take decades or lifetimes to master. We could spend the rest of our life dedicated to studying herbalism and we'll never know it all. It's just, you have to continue learning.
Well, I mean, yeah, we'll never know it all. And that's one of the things I love about, again, I can just go back to our mentor. He will ask us sometimes, does anybody know anything about this new thing? Has anybody tried this? Was he was asking us about seed cycling.
Oh yeah, yep.
Because he was like, I've never tried it, but I know people are talking about it. Does it work? Because he, with 50 years of clinical experience, is willing to incorporate something new into his practice if it works.
If it works.
To continue there's an open mind is priceless. And so, I mean, I think that's also just like a good point to touch on because we might sound like we're trashing other practitioners and we're not at all. That's not my intention in any way. My intention is, I mean, if people are doing something that I'm not doing, or if somebody thinks that it's a really good idea to just pull one piece of a modality out of a complete healing system, and they have a reason why they think that that is the best way to do it, I'm all ears.
Yeah, and I think that the extracting, now that we're talking about it more, the extracting modalities out of entire systems is almost a reflection of what's going on in our society because I think that everyone is trying to niche down and become specialist in one thing. And so we get like hyper focused on this one single thing or this one single piece of the healing puzzle or this one single piece of the body like mitochondria health or whatever it is. We're hyper focusing, and I think that we're missing the big holistic picture at the end of the day. In so many places, there's nobody holding that bird's eye view of like, these are all the pieces that need to be focused on and balanced to help a person heal. And when um I think that we, like I said, just for societal and economical reasons, everyone's just gone that direction. And I think we need to correct it so we can actually get people healing and feeling good.
Well, and then there's also licensing issues, right? Because if I want to touch someone, then like I have to become a massage therapist, which is part of Ayurveda, right? Or I practice traditional Chinese herbalism, but I have to go to acupuncture school if I want to do acupuncture.
Yes.
I don't think I can even put a cup somewhat on someone in Texas. I'm not set up to do that kind of stuff in my office anyway. So ideally, I would be in a space where there would be an acupuncturist and a massage therapist and an herbalist and a nutritionist all in the same place, and we could give someone um, everything they need in one spot. Wouldn't that be wonderful?
So yes, yes, absolutely. And helping these modalities work in concert together because I think that's really how they were designed to work. And I know you're not afraid to refer your clients out to go see body workers or go get acupuncturists. And I'm not either. Like I will absolutely refer a client out if it's out of my skill set or somebody can serve them in that area better than I can. You know, I have a client with chronic back pain and we're doing things for his inflammation and to get his body structurally sound and things like that, but there is a bodywork component that needs to get addressed. So I make partnerships and connections with other practitioners so we can truly bring people all the services they need to come back into balance.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I have a fully developed referral network that includes acupuncturists, massage therapists, chiropractors, doctors. Um, if somebody needs a nutritionist, I send them your way, or I'll just consult with you.
I got you.
Um, but yeah, absolutely. I can't give everyone everything they need. It takes a village.
Village. That's exactly what was going through my head as we were talking about it. And like again, for our own health, like I don't think we could ever just rely on one single person. But I think that's what's kind of beautiful about the work we get to do is we kind of get to hold that bird's eye view picture for people and help direct them where they need to go and show them, you know, hey, if you brought in this modality, that would really help. Because I think at the end of the day, back to being a consumer, it's really hard to figure out who to see, where to go, and how to get the help you need.
Yeah, absolutely. That's there are certain situations where acupuncture is really helpful. Other situations where a body worker would be more beneficial.
Yep.
It's just, and I think that the way you learn that again, just back to like, how do we know, right? Comes down to experience.
Yeah. I'm going to ask a hard-hitting question.
Um,
Do you think we need more accountability in the alternative healing spaces?
mm, accountable to whom?
Uh, I was reading in one of our Ayurvedic books recently, and I don't remember the exact quote, but it was something along the lines of, as practitioners, we have a duty to give our full energy to anyone that we are serving and trying to heal.
Mhm.
Like we have a duty, I think, when we choose to do this work to do it effectively with our full presence, our full energy, and our, you know, our full commitment to helping people get as far as they can with us.
Absolutely.
And so I think an accountability to ourselves and the grander scheme of the universe, that might sound kind of wishy-washy, but um, you know, in my head, I'm thinking about a lot of the herbalists I see on social media and people who are making herbal recommendations that are just going to be ineffective. And when people do that, it frustrates me because when people take that advice and they run with it and they try this thing and it doesn't work, they think herbs don't work or they think herbs are ineffective and they go look elsewhere. And I think that there is a responsibility to, if we are going to use and advertise and practice these modalities, that we do it to their fullest extent and capabilities, or we kind of water down the entire system, right? Like if if we're not helping these modalities be as effective as they could be, consumers are going to lose faith, which hurts all of us and it hurts people who are actually trying to find help.
I agree with you. I agree. I think I don't, the wording of the question, you say, do we need more accountability in the natural healing world, right? And I say accountability to whom? Because we think about accountability to what? To professional organizations, to accreditation boards, to government entities, then that's a whole another can of worms. That's really a whole nother episode. I'm for licensing. I'm absolutely for licensing. I think that because what I think we need is more integrity
Yeah.
because the accountability, like to myself, absolutely. I have a responsibility. It's a duty and a privilege to help my clients or anyone who comes to me on their journey to feel better. And when someone asks for my help, then I have a responsibility that the universe has put before me. And I take it very seriously. But I do see a lot of things, and that's why I'm for licensing. I can't go around and say that I'm a doctor. I'm absolutely not a doctor because there's licensing for doctors, and doctors work very hard and meet certain criteria to become doctors. Now, I am an herbalist. I have a total of I totaled it up. I mean, it's like I have it somewhere. Um, so many hours. There's just so many hours and years of formal academic education, 400 hours of supervised clinical experience to to do what I do. But someone can go and take a weekend class at a yoga studio and call themselves an herbalist. Someone can get on Wikipedia and learn a few things about herbs on Wikipedia and go around and call themselves an herbalist. And then they can, I don't know, set up a booth at the Renaissance Festival and do $20 herbal consults and give people a lot of really misguided and ineffective advice and compromise the integrity of what we do.
So when we talk about do we need more accountability, maybe the accountability needs to come from the education institutions who are pumping out practitioners, because no practitioner goes into this wanting to be ineffective or not wanting to do good work. I think anyone coming in this field, like they have a big heart and they're here for a reason. And it's not necessarily their fault that they weren't equipped with the proper tools to get clinical results, right? And I
Mhm.
think that's, you know, a big issue happening in the naturopathic space is you're going to school, you're dropping $250,000 for the debt that it cost, and you're coming out into practice expecting to get clinical results, but you weren't trained to give people clinical results. That's like not on that person at all. That's like not necessarily their fault, but these institutions keep pumping people out with this education and this curriculum that's not as effective as it should or could be. And I think that's a big piece of it. And then on the other side of that, we have people, I think, publishing books and putting things out into the world that are questionable. That's the best way I can say it. But if we don't have the clinical experience, we're not ready to write books, or
Well, and then we have to consider also the people who do have clinical experience, who do write books and have to deal with publishers who are afraid of the litigiousness of our society. And we have spoken to experienced, effective practitioners who have written books. And when we look at the doses that are suggested in their books, we say, these are subclinical doses. Why are these doses in this book? And they say, well, we had an issue with the publisher, so we had to negotiate with the publisher because they were worried about liability issues. And and with that being said, if you've got PCOS or fibromyalgia, you probably shouldn't buy a book at Barnes and Noble and try and fix it yourself. You should probably go and see someone who's experienced and ask some help. Ask for some help.
yeah.
As far as the ND schools go, I mean, I haven't talked to, we're just for people who are listening, I'm in Houston, Texas, and Lila is in Portland.
For Washington, but I'm right across the road from Portland.
Okay, so you're up there on the on the West Coast,
Hmm.
where you guys are probably 15, 20 years ahead of us in the natural healing world. I
Yep.
think I think last time I Googled it, I found like 5 naturopaths in Houston, Texas. It's a big city. There aren't many naturopaths. What I see here a lot is just people who tell me that they're healers. Um, or that they are natural therapists, or they're herbalists. And these are people who, if they've had any education at all, it's maybe been a weekend workshop.
Not enough.
And it frankly it's frightening and offensive. And I don't know what they're teaching people, that the people that they're working with.
Yeah, that's a great point. So this rut we're in, it seems to be coming down to a commercial. We didn't even get into the commercialization of herbs and people trying to sell herbal products and supplements for money. I think
That's a whole nother
that's a whole
episode.
that's a big piece of it, and everything getting used ineffectively. But like we touched on the commercialization of yoga, all these schools out here trying to make a profit. I think there's a big commercialization piece, and then I think the liability piece is huge, right? People are afraid to do work in the world because we're not protected as herbalists or natural healers, right? We're kind of operating in this gray zone.
Gray area, yeah.
Yeah. And then I think that the third piece that I'm hearing us talk about is the loss of wisdom. Just the loss of people who have been doing it, who know what it looks like, who knows what clinical results could be expected. I even in my nutrition training, I was taught you cannot reverse an autoimmune disease. You cannot reverse a food allergy.
Not.
There's so many natural healers out there that have done both of those beautifully and effectively.
Mhm. Yes.
And we're like now putting limitations on what the body can't do or can do. And I think that's part of it. And that's part of the lack of wisdom, right? Like we've lost a generation or something in there that's supposed to be teaching us how to do these things, and they're not there. The wisdom is missing.
What is that about? That's true. I mean, where does that come from? Because that is possible. And I know that it's possible because people that I trust who practice have told me that it's possible.
Yes. Where does it come from? That's a great question.
That's a good one I mean, I don't know the answer. I think that's a good one to explore. Why are we putting limitations on the body? I mean, I firmly believe, and I trust and I know because I have seen it, that if you give your body the correct resources, the body is a self-healing organism and it will heal with the right amount of the proper resources. And it's sad to me that people don't know that.
It
Or
is sad. Well, and I think a big piece of it is um, as a population in the whole, I think our health is getting more and more challenged just from what's going on in society. But I think the component that is really affecting thing is what came out 30 years ago. What does everyone have access to now that changes the way that we think about the world?
Oh, the internet.
Internet. Now that's completely changed the landscape of healing and of information, right? If I go Google, can I reverse an autoimmune disease? What do you think is going to come up? No,
Oh.
not reversible.
I want to ask ChatGTP right now.
Okay.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
ask him. Let's see. My mate over here.
Yeah. I think the internet has changed the alternative health space so much. And then again, you're up against this conventional medicine machine that I think keeps growing bigger and bigger, and it's just creating this perfect storm.
Hey, okay, so it's ChatGTP says that autoimmune diseases are incurable, but many six people successfully manage symptoms, halt disease progression, and achieve remission. So now
Hmm.
we're talking semantics.
Well, that's what I've was taught in my functional nutrition training was that you cannot cure or reverse an autoimmune disease. You will always have it. What you can do is manage symptoms. So you can live symptom free, but I think they don't honor one, how complex our immune system is and how much we do not understand and know about our immune system. And we really, when we talk about things not being reversible, are discounting the body and its abilities in a very harming way, because back to the placebo effect, like our mindset sets the tone for what our body can do. And if we don't believe that these things can be reversed, they can't be reversed.
Well, I don't want to go too far down a rabbit hole here, but if anybody's watching the video, you see my face as we're talking about this. This we have to consider how autoimmune diseases are diagnosed. Okay,
Oh,
that, I mean, not to go too far down the rabbit hole, but so once it's diagnosed, it's incurable. Although you can halt progression and cease symptoms and it can go into remission. I'm sorry, in my book, if you have a problem and all the symptoms go away, you don't have that problem anymore. This is because I mean you don't most autoimmune diseases aren't even some are diagnosed with blood tests, some are not diagnosed with blood tests. It's a very
it's a new science.
it's just I can't even think of the it's what's the word? It's on the tip of my tongue.
Arbitrary.
Arbitrary. There we go. These are arbitrary diagnostic methods. And so, it's like we talk about, okay, perfect example, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome.
Hmm.
If you go to a rheumatologist, you will get diagnosed with fibromyalgia. If you go to your primary care physician, they will diagnose you with chronic fatigue syndrome. Same symptoms.
Hmm.
No blood test necessary for the diagnosis. You just have to feel bad in 15 different ways for about 10 years.
It's subjective.
It's subjective. That was the word I was looking for. Um, so yeah, I mean, it was like I said, semantics.
Yeah. Well,
Semantics.
that's a great point. Like we shouldn't let a piece of paper or a diagnostic method determine if we're feeling good or not, right? Like if we are feeling good, if these symptoms are not there, if we are able to live in the zone of dynamic health and dynamic balance where, we have some leeway and we're not constantly getting knocked off our health grind from a little thing entering our sphere, then I think we're in a healthy space and we don't need to question and challenge it and always have this label of we're sick or we're incurable or there's something going on in our body that's not right. Because those are damaging thoughts at the end of the day.
Well, that's what is health? I mean, it's health is the absence of disease. It's feeling good in your body. It requires practicing some awareness. I'm not going to let a piece of paper that, somebody scribbled something down on 10 years ago tell me how I'm supposed to feel today. I practice awareness and I notice how I feel today, and that's what determines how I feel today, and that's what determines whether or not I'm healthy.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's great.
Um, thank you. Thank you. So yeah, this can all be like really overwhelming. And I remember feeling overwhelmed. I remember like ingesting essential oils. By the way, don't do that, people. Years ago, and um, drinking loads of herbal teas, like whole boxes, and wondering why I wasn't feeling better. Um, I've bought so much tea tree oil.
Me too. Me too. Oh, and wellness formula. And I have spent so much money. And I know I had to throw it in there.
Well, wanting to feel better and not knowing what to do, right?
Yeah.
So, I
Yeah.
mean, as a consumer, as a layman, I think it can all be very overwhelming. And then even as someone who wants to go into this space, um, I had a woman ask me about 3 months ago. She said, I'm thinking about going into natural health care. And I had do you have any suggestions? And I had like a 45-minute conversation with her about what professional organizations to look at, what schools to look at, what schools not to look at, what kind of questions to ask the school about the teachers to make sure that she actually gets a good education. And I could tell she was a little overwhelmed. She thought that I was just going to give her a couple of websites, but there's a lot more to it than that because we are kind of in a funny space with alternative wellness that things are growing and going in different directions. And it's different than it was 10 years ago, way different than it was 10 years ago, and way different than it was 5 years ago. It's just a lot to swallow. I don't know how many times I've said that I could start a business teaching people how to buy vitamins. If you go to your local grocery store and go to the health food aisle to buy some vitamin C or ooh, magnesium.
That's some real.
And we could do a whole episode on magnesium bottle labels. I could start a business teaching people how to read vitamin labels and purchase vitamins because it is overwhelming that there's 20 different kinds of vitamin C. The labeling is misleading and you don't know what kind you need or how much you need. And that's the marketing stuff. Therein lies a lot of the commercialization and the marketing issues. Or if you need some golden seal, your practitioner says go and get some golden seal, and they've got golden seal aerial parts and golden seal root, and you don't know what it is you're supposed to get. And the golden seal aerial parts are a lot less expensive, so it's very tempting to buy them, although they're not therapeutically effective. But you don't know that.
No, no, and I'm thinking about, the herbs that get trendy, like ashwagandha or something. And all these products come out to help you sleep and help with your anxiety. And, while this herb does do these things, we're putting it in ineffective forms and packages. And as a consumer, you don't know any better. I remember a couple years ago, like I was taking ashwagandha from a tincture, and I 100%
Oh,
know that anything I felt from that was placebo effect. Like looking back,
catching a buzz from the alcohol.
right, it's probably chilling me out. The 5 drops that were in the dosage.
Yeah, no, probably not the alcohol.
Yeah. Yeah. But as a consumer, you don't know any better. You think that a reputable looking company is selling this, right? You would think that if something is packaged and put on a shelf, it is effective. But because consumers don't know what to look for and what effective looks like from the herbal medicine, we have all these companies able to put these products out there that aren't working.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what can consumers do?
What can consumers do? Well, I think one of the biggest things is if you're going to read a book from someone reputable who's been a practicing clinician or who really has some weight behind them. And do not get your information from bloggers. And if you hear a health claim, trace it back to its origins. Try and find the source of that. I think that is such a big problem with all the misinformation coming on. We take things at face value. We put in a Google search, and if we see it on the front page, we believe it. And I think we need more scrutiny as consumers into who to listen to and what to believe. I think that's a big piece of it. But I want to hear what you think.
Um, yeah, I think absolutely. If you read a book or a blog, it needs to be someone who is in clinical practice. And if you're going to take their advice,
Hmm.
I think that if you have something serious going on, you need to see a reputable practitioner.
Yes.
And as a consumer, like if this is something that you're really gonna get into, like do get some books. Get some books. Find out what like for with the golden seal, for example, find out what part of the golden seal is traditionally used. Ask questions. And know if it doesn't make sense, then it's not true.
Uh,
I've had some explanations from some people in the whole body department at Whole Foods that just are nonsensical. Beware when somebody tells you that something's toxic. Know the difference between toxic and nauseating. Lots of things will nauseate you that aren't toxic. But these
yeah.
are things that you would need a practitioner for. I think that's what it comes down to. And then what can practitioners do? And I think we've talked about that. I think continuing education. We
Hmm.
and we live in a space where there aren't a lot of bridge programs for mentorship and there aren't a lot of fellowship programs. We need to connect with each other. We need to consult with each other. We need to have round table style case presentations where we sit down and we look at a case together.
Hmm.
This is something that mainstream medicine has in ample supply and that we don't have enough of. We need to communicate with each other, collaborate with one another, and learn from one another.
I love that. I mean, you and I are clinicians and we still do study groups and practitioner development meetings and we share findings and we collaborate. And I think that's so important because I think, if I experience something and I get to share it with you, that helps your clinic, right? And sharing that information is huge. And having people you can bounce ideas off of or talk through things that you read in a book with is invaluable.
Yes, it's invaluable. It enriches my practice. It enriches my life. I benefit from it. I hope that you benefit from it. And my clients benefit from it.
Yeah. You taught me how to do coffee enemas today.
Hey,
The
yeah.
benefit from that.
This is, I mean, it's we should all be talking to each other more and
Hmm.
seeking to learn from one another and share with one another more. And I don't think that there is any aversion to doing that with one another. I just think we lack the space and the platform to do it.
Yes, very much so.
At least as herbalists who've trained in the way that we have, which is kind of in this a bit of an archaic lineage style teaching where we didn't go to neither of us graduated from Bastyr. I'll just say that.
Yep. Well, one thing I want to touch on that you mentioned earlier, but there's so much new science coming out. There's so many new products coming out. There's so many new preparations of herbs coming out. And I think at the end of the day, if we don't have clinical proof that something's working, we need to fall back on how has it been used traditionally because we have traditional knowledge that dates back thousands of years that help us know what's effective, what's going to work, what we can expect from these things because people have been doing it for 5,000 plus years and we have that knowledge. So if I'm ever in doubt about what direction to go, I always fall back on traditional preparation, a traditional approach to what it is I'm dealing with. And I think that's a huge piece of it is relying on what's been proven to work.
I think that would be, and yes, I'm with you on that. And I think that that would be a great future episode for practitioners is the difference between relying on studies versus relying on the traditional methods, because there's a lot of that out there. I will always rely on something that was written in the Vedas before I will rely on something that I find on NCBI.
Same.
Always. I mean, you can't argue with 5,000 years of experience. It's like cranberry juice. We have no idea, or maybe we do now. I don't know why cranberry juice works for UTIs, but we know it does. We know my grandma did it, my great grandmother did it, her great grandmother did it. And so when you get a UTI, you drink cranberry juice and it helps.
No,
Does it matter that it works?
that one.
Yeah. I mean, that's my approach.
Well, that's how you get clinical results with your clients.
So, man, we've probably been at it. We've been at it for about an hour.
Oh, time just flies.
That's fine. So I don't want to wear anybody out. So this is like, I think that this sets us up very well for, we're going to do some deep dives going forward. We're going to talk about the things that I'm really excited about, or talking about the tea aisle and the vitamin aisle. Um, we're going to talk about, let's see, we've got a list. What else are we going to talk about, Lila?
We have such a list. I can't even pull from it right now into my head. And it's just like everything alternative healing and finding results as a clinician or a consumer out there in the world. I don't know. We have so many topics planned that are so exciting.
Yeah, we're going to talk about, let's see, the medical gaslighting. That's a fun one. The relevance of agent medicine today. I really do want to take you down and talk about the growing medicinal plants outside of their native regions.
Mm,
It's the plants we want to use and why. The Ayurveda police. That'll be a fun episode. So you guys don't even know about the Ayurveda police, so you'll have to come back and find out what the Ayurveda police is.
I love that. Yeah, I think we'll end up talking about dosing and how to be empowered in your health and misconceptions out there about things like magnesium and parasites and detoxing.
Yeah, we're going to talk about parasites. We're going to talk about detoxing. At the end of the day, I mean, I think that's what it is, right? Like, we're going to talk about the difference between like serious herbalism and frou-frou, what you called frou-frou herbalism. Um, because we're serious. This is a serious thing and we're serious practitioners. And I know we're not the only ones, and we want serious results.
Yes.
And I believe consumers out there want serious results. We
Yeah.
all seriously want to feel better, and there's a lot of people who seriously don't feel good. And as practitioners, we seriously want to be successful in our practice and want to help people.
I'm so excited we get to share this with the world.
This is so much fun. I think this has gone good. It's a good first episode. I hope that people come back and listen to us chat some more.
Yes, yes, thank you. Thank you, Alicia, and thank you everyone for listening.
Yes, thank you, Lila. Thank you, everyone. Come see us again in 2 weeks.